Hello everyone, welcome to Creative Moment with Zhenia. I am happy to be here with you. Welcome. Starting April off with the full moon. Happy full moon, y'all, in Libra. So lots of supporting energy, of course, lots of difficult stuff too, but so what you're going to need for this creative moment is some writing utensils, preferably color. I just noticed that I didn't bring any. Your journal, a glass of water, of course, always hydrating. If you have a candle, feel free to light that up right now. This is a way for us to really engage with the fire element and ask for support, for protection, for inspiration. So, all right, so this full moon in Libra, boundaries, relationships, really the question is, what do we want to let go in regards to really strengthening our well-being in regards to relationships, not just with others, but with ourselves as well, of course. Just a question to y'all. If you've been thinking about that, if you've been just reflecting on that, let me know in the comments what you are ready to let go in terms of your self-care, right? How do we want to practice self-care and really strengthen that well-being? What else? Balance is a big one for Libras, right? Libra is all about justice and fairness and balance and harmony. And so how are we bringing that into our lives in an active, intentional way? And how are we letting go of people, patterns that are not helping us to balance? So I thought that we can, in our creative moment today, we can delve into anger, a beautiful, powerful emotion that is really asking us what needs to be protected and what needs to be resolved. I will speak about anger in length after the meditation, but if you remember, the last creative moment we had was I really brought in the image of the sprout, right? And you can imagine the sprout, breaking through ground, going against gravity, really reaching up, right? And just that force, that chi, that push up, right? That energy going up. That is where we are. We are in an active pushing up, right? In traditional Chinese medicine, this is called the wood element, where, we're starting to notice the breaking through the ground. And so this time is also influenced by that emotion of anger and that pushing through, right? And the question I want to raise for us here in this moment is, how can we start to see anger as an agent of change, right? As opposed to anger being a violent, full of conflict, right? How can we see anger in ourselves first as rising to protect and resolve, but really rising to bring fairness to an injustice, rising to support us as we strengthen our boundaries, right? How does anger help us to change those situations and those relationships that maybe benefited from us pushing down our anger and repressing our anger? So something to think about. And as always, I like to start with a grounding meditation to really help us connect to our body, connect to our heart, connect to our breath. So I hope you are comfortable. take a glass of water. All right, so you are comfortable. Go ahead and close your eyes. And take a nice gentle deep breath in. And out. And continue to breathe gently and slowly. Don't force the breath. Just allow it to come in. Expand your lungs. And allow it to be released. And allow yourself to release that breath down into the ground. And if your body is touching the ground or the closest to the ground, just notice how the breath exits your body through possibly your feet where you are sitting on the ground. And that this invitation to breathe in and invite, and the invitation to release and expel. And be aware of your skin. Be aware of its temperature. Maybe if you want to touch it, you can. Be aware of the clothes that are on you, where they lay, where they cover and where they don't. And so this is your physical boundary. And oftentimes we can allow that physical boundary to be relaxed. Or when we are feeling threatened or angry, we can feel a heat rising in our skin. And so all the emotions that we feel are valid. Every emotion that you have felt had something to share with you, had something to offer you. And so with hands on your heart, just allow that to just sit in your awareness. My emotions are valid, no matter how uncomfortable they might make others, no matter how uncomfortable they might make me. My heart can encompass, can hold the gamut of emotions that are present right now. That were present in the past and will be present in the future. And with each breath, just allow that compassionate holding. Maybe you feel the tingle, the sensation of your heart against your hands. Maybe you feel some sort of other sensations. Just notice that. There's no need to judge if you feel nothing at all. It's totally fine. And as we allow ourselves the space to feel our emotions, let us recall a moment, maybe recently, where you have felt angry. Angry at someone, angry at a situation. And just notice where you feel that in your body. Perhaps you feel it in your solar plexus. It's our center of power and our will. Perhaps you feel it in your sacral. It's the place of our emotions, a home for our emotions and our sensitivities. Maybe you feel it in your head. Do you feel a color perhaps? Do you sense a color? What other sensations do you sense? And without judging yourself or perhaps the person that you were in the situation with, just allow yourselves to just be in that moment together. What was said, what was done, was it resolved? What came up for you? We really want to get into the colors, the sensations that came up for you. And so if you're able to recall that in this moment, just hold that. We will use it later. And let us say thank you to anger for the moment. Let us honor this core emotion of the season that allows us to express our boundaries, strengthen our boundaries, that allows us to validate our sense of self, and allows the opportunity for change to enter into the situation, conversation. What in that moment for you wanted to be changed? What were you seeking? And now allow yourself to release that moment and just come back to your body. Feel free to touch your knees or your arms and just give yourself a little hug. Every emotion that you feel is valid, even the ones that may seem inappropriate to others. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, look around, just to make sure you can orient yourself in this physical space. Great. How does that feel for everyone? Reminder to hydrate. Yeah, let me know in the comments if that meditation resonated with you, because we want to really work with that energy that came up for us. So I want to start this back again to anger, and the fact that our culture has a deeply unhealthy relationship with anger. Oftentimes we're ashamed for feeling anger, but really anger and the idea of conflict, right, can be really regenerative and can be really restorative. Because if you think about, let's say, being in a room with somebody and, they're calling you names or whatever, they are, essentially what they're doing is they're crossing a boundary, crossing boundaries into you. And so what we want to do is we want to really hold space for the possibility of holding our own boundaries. And we can do that with different ways. I wanted to bring up this book that I absolutely love, The Language of Emotions by Carla McLaren. She has a really interesting approach, which, us as empaths, we can really engage in empowering ourselves by really visualizing a color, a texture that is essentially enveloping our boundaries, right? The area around us, like filling up with a fire, filling up with, a color to really sort of strengthen that boundary so that the other person can sense it, so that we can sense a sort of like empowerment, right? Because we can have different ways that we respond to anger. We can create the boundary, or we can suppress the boundary. And so when we suppress the boundary, we can really hurt ourselves. And so, how do we hold anger for what it's asking us to do? How do we honor anger for what is asking us to voice, to express, to hold our ground, right? And so this is what we'll be really digging in. I see Nikki. Oh, hey, Nikki Namar. Figuring out where in the body was useful for me. The anger is often so strong and I don't pay attention to the fact that where its location. Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the things that we can really start to practice is when we are in situations that, including anger, where is that resonating? Where do you start to feel it? Because what we can do is we can start to pick up on the anger before it grows into rage. If it doesn't have to, right? We can notice the symptoms. Perhaps your stomach is starting to tighten, right? Perhaps you're starting to get pressure. You're most likely going to feel heat. So that's a really big one to pay attention to. Anger brings heat. Anger is a rising sensation. So you really want to pay attention to that, right, in your body. Because when you start to pay attention to that in your body, then you know that anger is coming through, and then you can start to figure out what you can do. Maybe you don't want to engage, but knowing when it's coming up is a really important way to sort of navigate that conversation with anger. Does that make sense? Okay, so what I want to do for this creative prompt, so go ahead and take your journals. And I want us to, if you were there for the meditation, I want us to, for a moment, just recall that situation. If that feels okay for you to do, right? If that feels safe for you to do. And just give me a heads up if you don't. If you just want to run it in comment, so we'll do something else. But if you feel okay to go into that situation for a moment, just bring that up for yourself. Because I really wanna connect this full moon in Libra and the way that we wanna sort of take care of ourselves and the way that we wanna be in relationships with other people. I want to invite this person perhaps into your practice, right? Because we don't have to let people go because they make us angry, but we can really start to work with them. So let's say this person that is in your mind when you were in a meditation, right? I'm assuming it's a person. And take out some colors, just put out your colors out for you to see. And just pick up, just without even thinking about it, just pick up 3 or 4 colors right away that make you think about fire, that make you think about protection, that make you think about just inner strength, right? Inner fortitude. Just 3 or 4 colors. Yeah. And go ahead and take one of those colors and draw like an oval just in the middle of the picture. Draw an oval. You can fill it in if you want, but I just want it to be a kind of solid figure right in the middle. So that's how it should look, right? An egg type. So this is you. This is you. And I want you to pick other colors. I don't have any other colors with me, but I want you to pick other colors, and I want you to draw around that oval. Take whatever space you need. If you want to do it closer, if you want to do it a little farther, I want you to draw a boundary, to draw like a hold a container for this oval. Yeah. So you might want to draw, you might want to draw patterns in it, but I want you to just draw some kind of a container for this oval. And you can use whatever colors you want. And as you're doing this, I want you to think of this person that has made you angry, the situation. And as you are drawing, I'm just going to keep talking. And really the prompt, this boundary that you're creating, right? What about the situation is making you angry? What wants to be changed? And just keep drawing that boundary, and you can keep kind of circling around it if you want. And as I'm talking, and if something is coming in for you, write those messages down, right? Are your lines fluid? Are they straight? Are they, squiggles? Are they... Just allow yourself to sort of really play with that boundary. What's your boundary starting to look like, right? Is it looking more solid? Is there a lot of space in between the lines, right? And I want you to start sort of making it as solid as possible. It doesn't have to be one thick line, just we're practicing, in a very playful way, how our imagination can start to create those boundaries for ourselves in situations, right? But right now we're just engaging our imagination. And we're actually seeing a boundary that we can create. And maybe for many of us, this is a completely new practice of considering a boundary around ourselves that can protect us, right? Because once that boundary is made, the other person has no choice but to see it. Has no choice but to feel it as well. So, and how this practice of us drawing this boundary, how is it creating change, tiny, tiny changes in our lives? Can we start to see that boundary as an important way that we can solidify our sense of self, our expression, our stance? And how can that practice of setting boundaries and maybe visualizing a boundary around you, which is something we can all do on a daily basis actually, is protecting our boundaries. How can that help us to create more balance in our life, right? To create more harmony by setting a boundary, by strengthening our boundary. Because other people that might have felt okay at, interfering with our boundaries, saying what they wanted to say without repercussions, possibly hurting our feelings and being insensitive. How can we strengthen our capacity to stand up? I want a big shout out to Lindsay Fultonay, who is a teacher of mine. She has this brilliant book in Our Element. I highly recommend it. using the 5 elements of soul medicine to unleash your personal power. She writes something really interesting about anger, and I just want to read it out loud. We know that anger is a signal for change when our freedom is obstructed. An important emotional issue has not been addressed. Too many of our beliefs, values, desires, ambitions are being compromised. We are doing or giving more beyond our capacity or more than is comfortable. Others are doing too much at the expense of our competence and growth. Our boundaries are being violated, or our no is not being heard. And last, we are not being seen or validated. So these are reasons why anger could come up, and why it is important for us to really allow ourselves to work with anger, to allow our anger to rise, so that folks understand when a no is a no, right? When our freedom is obstructed, when you need to do something and you're not able to do it, right? And how can we not shy away from our own genuine expression of anger when something needs to change, right? So, and this is something I've been sitting with for a little while too in my own personal life. But, you know, having boundaries, creating boundaries, strengthening boundaries, really visualizing that those colors around you. When you're angry, when someone's angry at you and you're angry, can really help you to stand firmer in your reality, right? And it can help you to express yourself with more integrity, right? So I wonder if this is helpful for you, if you've been feeling angry, and how have you been, relating to anger in your own life. And it really comes down to all our emotions are valid. All our emotions are valid, because so often we negate, suppress those emotions that are coming up as a way to protect us, right? And, we can start to engage it in these small creative ways, but really it also is about having compassion for that anger, right? Having compassion for that person in us, that young person, that little person that maybe couldn't say those things when they were younger. And now we can. And now we can. Now we can start to sense into when our boundaries are, disrespected, right? When someone wants to get their way, but they haven't really heard us. They haven't really asked us, So how did that land for you? Oh, Nikki says, in my case, it's that I'm being told they aren't what you want them to be. They can never be that understanding person, that protection I so want them to be. The anger's telling me, give up trying. Right, so it's beautifully said. So there's really 2 ways that we can react to anger. We can either, Lindsay says, we can either explode or we can implode. And so what we don't want to do is we want to try to have, we want to react with integrity of who we are, right? And giving up trying is really imploding, right? How can we connect to that image of the sprout, right? If the sprout didn't allow that energy, that chi to come up, it wouldn't, and that energy that really allows it to grow, it's not gonna grow, right? And so if we implode, we are doing ourselves a disservice. It is not a way, I'm not shaming people, because I have for a long time have done that. So it's all about awareness of what we're feeling, where we're feeling it, and really allowing ourselves to to hold those feelings with compassion and, understanding that they are showing up to tell us something important, right? Another thing I wanted to do actually in this creative moment was, a picture, maybe we could do a visualization, right? Close your eyes and picture an iceberg, right? And you see above the iceberg is, right, this chunk of ice, right? And we can think of that chunk of ice as anger, right? An expression of anger, right? But what's underneath the iceberg is the rest of that ice, right? And oftentimes our expression of anger is really suppressed emotion, like sadness and grief and resentment and frustration, right? And so in a way, we are called to own our anger, not to shy away from anger, even though it might make uncomfortable situations with other people. But in a way, people must start to recognize that they can't do that, right? And I guess your other choice is to let go of that relationship if it's not changing, if your anger and your expression of anger isn't changing anything, perhaps distance yourself. And that's also a boundary too, right? And yes, I have imploded so many times and it hurts, so I'm interested in the notion of it. Is it implosion? I'm interested in the notion of it. Is it implosion? Yes. Oh, right. So there's explosion, the fiery sort of like expression of anger, right? And then the suppressed anger, which is the implosion. And implosion, I just posted a really beautiful artistic sort of like post from, I think it's at Healing Point, and they talked about liver and gallbladder as the organs that are associated with the season and wood and anger, right? And how the gallbladder, if we are suppressing our anger, how the gallbladder is sort of changing shape and like, what did they call it? It's like squeezed, right? These organs are helping us to work with anger. And so, yeah, my hope for you is that if the person's not hearing you and not hearing your boundaries, then you can really have some space with them. And I think that might help. Distancing has helped tremendously as this boundary is something I've only just learned about. Yes, of course. Yeah, I'm so glad you joined us. This is what you needed to hear, and I'm glad that we can work through it. Yeah, I hope this has been helpful, y'all. We're just about out of time. Our next creative session is going to be the first Wednesday of May. I hope you join me. Just as a conclusion, you know what? I'm going to pick a card because I always forget to pick a card. So I'm going to pick a card from one of my favorite Vessel Oracle decks. And, as I shuffle and clear this deck, I just wanted to, say that if you're interested in sort of deepening this work of working with your imagination, creativity, and your emotions, your emotional awareness, I offer one-on-one sessions. So if that's available to you, you can look at my offerings. So, I'm so glad the drawing exercise. Which colors did you pick for your? It's always interesting. I always ask folks to have colorful utensils, just because color has such a beautiful way to really engage that imagination. And also colors are healing, and if we can pick colors and use colors in this, then we can also bring those sort of boundaries in the visualizations in this situation that can really help us. So yeah, anyone else want to share? Blue and purple. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. I'm just going to clear this deck and ask for guidance in this moment. Thanks for joining today. I was like a little nervous about it, just because anger is personal, and everyone has very different relationships with anger. But anger is, I'm learning in my own life how important anger is, to witness in yourself, but also witness in others, and really hold other people's anger in is honorable, especially folks that haven't really been allowed to own their anger. People of color, Black women, Black men, who've been shamed to express anger. So it's just a really beautiful moment of healing for ourselves, to be able to really hold our anger and then be able to hold anger for others. Righteous anger. We're talking about righteous anger. Anger that has, that's really an ally for change. All right, so oh God, this is the second time this card comes up. So, the full moon brings up a lot for us, right? Oftentimes it's just a lot of emotions, a lot of illuminations. I like to think of the full moon as, if you look at the moon, you could see it, but you could also feel all the emotions that the moon holds for us, right? All the unconscious, all the sort of suppressed, all the parts of us that we don't like to accept, we don't want to hold. And so for this full moon, know that you are held, and know that rest is always available, even if you close your eyes for 2 minutes. However you can engage in restful practice of self-care. That's really what it is. Rest is a daily practice of self-care. If you can really just allow yourself 5 minutes to close your eyes, to take a break, to take some breaths, to stretch yourself, to just lie down and just be horizontal, rest can really help you in this, these times of intensity and overwhelm. This fiery season has been really interesting, so I personally have really been resting a lot. So that's my invitation to you. I love all the stars that are on this card as well. So I hope that has been nourishing for you. I'm so glad you have joined us today. I'll see you next month, same time, same place. Take care. Bye.